There are thousands of games releasing every year, so many so that it's hard to keep track. And that's not even taking into account the classic games of yesteryear. I mean, I've forgotten about more games than I can count, and I'm sure there are ones that you have forgotten as well. So we've compiled a list of classic games that maybe you've forgotten about, some you've maybe never played, and others that maybe you've never even heard of. Who knows, maybe you'll find your next favorite classic game. Kicking off our list at number 10 is a cult classic horror game written by a legendary writer that even bears his namesake. This is Clive Barker's Undying. Originally releasing back in 2001, to generally favorable reviews but poor sales numbers, the game follows the adventures of an Irish paranormal adventurer named Patrick Galloway in the 1920s as he investigates the mysterious occult happenings at an estate owned by his friend Jeremiah Covenant. Now, like I said, this game sold poorly and even had a sequel for its scrap because so, but it's gained an undying fanbase throughout the years, pun intended, elevating it to a cult-like status, and once you play it, it's hard not to fall in love with the charm of it all. The game is your bog standard first-person shooter type that was so popular back in the early aughts, featuring your typical health and abilities, slight puzzle solving, but also has a unique magic casting system that kind of sets it apart from other games out there at the time, making it almost an RPG of sorts in some moments. But if you've never heard of this game or maybe just forgotten all about it, I highly recommend checking it out for some throwback shooter action and a neatly crafted spooky world to go along with it. Moving right along to number 9, we have the oldest game on our list by far, but one of the coolest as well. This is the ever influential space trading and combat sim Starflight. Originally releasing 40 years ago in 1986, it brought space diplomacy to the family PC and kind of changed gaming for forever. So don't let the simple graphics on your screen fool you. This game can get pretty deep. Being one of the earliest examples of a sandbox game, it gave people the ability to space travel from their family room and allowed space nerds alike to experience sci-fi storytelling like never before. From mining minerals in ship-to-ship combat to finding habitable worlds and most importantly participating in alien diplomacy. And even though there are no set paths in the game allowing you the freedom to do as you please, there is a broader plot as you move along, letting you unravel the mystery at a galactic scale, one trade at a time. It is a game series that has influenced way more than you could ever imagine, even to this day, and one that I feel is often forgot about or looked over by newer generations. If you haven't played it, give it a shot, it's well worth it and takes you back to a much simpler time. And number 8 on our list is a survival horror game that is cold, creepy, and has a really good soundtrack. This is the 2005 cult classic Cold Fear. Taking place on a Russian whaler ship, you play as a Coast Guardman named Tom Hansen, who responds to a distress signal and soon realizes the ship he's trying to help is overrun with parasites that have turned the crew into zombie-like creatures. So you then set out to make sure that parasite and the creatures aboard that ship never make it to land. Classic. This game had the misfortune of releasing just a few months after the behemoth that is Resident Evil 4, and in turn was unjustly compared to it, resulting in somewhat negative reviews and poor sales figures. But as a lot of survival horror games from this era did, over the years it grew into a sleeper hit. And in late 2025, 20 years after its initial release, the game was unceremoniously removed from sale on digital storefronts, only to be saved a few weeks later by us and added to our preservation program, to be maintained and updated to run on modern systems for years to come. It's charming, has a great soundtrack, and is unabashedly a product of its time, and one I don't think many people knew about or remember much. So if you like this genre, definitely go give it a shot, just try not to get seasick. Hitting our list at number 7 is a cyberpunkish action-adventure game that was named 87th best PlayStation 2 game ever by IGN. I know I'd stick that on my resume. This is Project Eden. The game centers around a squad of 4 law enforcement agents who are investigating the growing disappearance of people in a megacity by working their way through the world one layer at a time. It's a third-person action-adventure game that primarily focuses on puzzle solving to make your way around and requires you to control the 4 agents independently to capitalize on each of their own abilities to make progress. But you have the choice to play this in either single player where you switch between the 4 characters at will, or in multiplayer with up to 3 other people taking control of different members of the team. It was a pretty unique concept for 2001 and one that I think holds up to this day, even with some of the puzzles being a little bit too difficult. And the story is pretty great as well, featuring a bunch of neat creature design and world building for those who want to delve deep. In my opinion, it's a game that's been pretty lost to time, but it's one that's still worth yours. Moving along to number 6 on our list is a groovy car game from 1997 that was way ahead of its time and still holds up incredibly well to this day. I'm talking about Interstate 76. Taking place in a world where the 1973 oil crisis was never resolved and corrupt police forces can't control the rampant riots, the Southwest United States quickly turns into a disco-fueled Mad Max-inspired combat zone, where citizens have turned to vigilantism by outfitting their vehicles with armor and weapons. You play as Groove Champion, a driver who is seeking revenge after his sister turns up murdered in the junkyard, and you set out on a journey to find out who did it. It's a classic vehicular combat game, but with a ton of style. It almost looks like a modern day indie game with its low poly look and bright poppy colors. And plus, the mechanics were way ahead of their time, allowing you to damage vehicles and in turn affect both their appearance and physics. I'm gonna be honest, I had never heard of this game till I started making this list, and I couldn't resist putting it on here. I don't know how it avoided me all these years, but it's one that I think deserves way more attention. Seriously, play this game, it's just good old fun. If you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to click that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future uploads. Now, let's move on. And at the halfway mark on our list, we have a game whose art style is an early 2000s fever dream and makes me yearn for forgotten worlds. This is the ever-chaotic Giants Citizen Kabuto. Now, this is a unique one. Blending a third-person shooter and real-time strategy elements such as base building and resource gathering doesn't seem like it should work, especially not in a game from the late 90s, but it totally does. Allowing players to take on the roles of 3 humanoid races in either single or multiplayer modes and explore this wild and sometimes wacky world. The game was released to critical acclaim and poor sales figures, but Kabuto grew to be a cult hit in the years following its release, being praised for its state-of-the-art graphics, bright art style, and unique blend of 2 different genres that actually worked surprisingly well. I'm gonna say this again, but this is a product of its time and type and style of game that we probably will never see made again. It's one that makes me feel all nostalgic for digital worlds that felt magical, and one that shouldn't be forgotten anytime soon. Moving along to number 4 on our list is a classic Obsidian RPG that is currently going through a resurgence in popularity and is maybe not so forgotten about, but definitely deserves some more attention, and that is the acclaimed Neverwinter Nights 2. Based on Dungeons & Dragons set in the Forgotten Realms and centered around the city of Neverwinter, this game follows the journey of an orphaned adventurer who is investigating a group of mysterious artifacts known as Silver Shards, and what connections they may have to an evil spirit called the King of Shadows. Now, this game was a hit when it came out 20 years ago in 2006, and is still extremely popular to this day, even getting a new enhanced edition back in 2025 to help fix some bugs and provide more modding tools for the community to play around with. And apart from the fantastic single-player experience that this game offers, it also has an incredibly healthy multiplayer community with fan-run servers for you to jump into and have adventures in, with complete custom campaigns and rules to keep you entertained for a very long time. Like I said, Neverwinter Nights 2 is probably the least forgotten about game on this list, but one that I couldn't help talking about. So if you've never tried it, go give it a shot. And number 3 on our list is a game from a storied franchise about highly aggressive and lethally destructive earthworms. That's right, this is the 1999 hit game Worms Armageddon. Originally intended to be an expansion pack for Worms 2, but eventually developed as a standalone title, this is some of the most chaotic fun you'll ever have with a game. And there have been many Worm games to release since this one came out, 18 to be exact. So it's pretty easy to forget about an entry or two in this franchise, but Armageddon is the best of the best. Featuring colorful stylized graphics, highly customizable gameplay, and some of the best movement in the series, it's a game that's easy to pick up but hard to master. And even though Armageddon is considered to be the best in the series, I feel it's often overshadowed by modern adaptations of the game. But it's really hard to beat a classic like this one. And fun fact, Worms Armageddon was intended to be the last game in the Worms franchise, but it's still around 27 years later and pushing forward. But if you haven't tried this one, get some friends together and try it out. You won't be disappointed. And at the penultimate spot on our list, we have a cult favorite RPG that was the first game from a storied Arcane Studios and features a world without a sun. This is the ever special and beautiful world of Arx Fatalis. Set in a world where the sun has died and all manner of life now takes refuge in caves, this game is something pretty special, with an open world rivaling that of the Elder Scrolls series, and featuring unique gameplay mechanics such as casting spells by mouse gestures and no dialogue system. Arx is a game you just have to experience for yourself. And like a lot of games on this list, it was beloved by critics but ultimately sold poorly at launch, eventually growing into a cult phenomenon with a dedicated fanbase. It's a game that holds up really well to this day with a rich art style, many possible ways to complete quests, and a story that is timeless. So if you're a fan of classic RPGs and you haven't played this one, what have you been doing? And at the number 1 spot on our list is a game that seems like absolutely no one talks about anymore despite its influence and being an absolute hit when it came out, and that is the influential point-and-click adventure game, The Longest Journey. In this game, you play as April Ryan, a young art student from Earth who is thrust into an emerging situation that leads her into discovering the existence of a parallel Earth where magic exists. When it was originally released in 1999, the game was praised for its strong female protagonist and complex storyline that featured a mix of high fantasy and science fiction, and even went on to spawn 2 sequels in the years to come after. But for whatever reason, this series seems to have fallen into obscurity and been forgotten by many despite it being so good. I may sound like a broken record at this point, but in my opinion, this still holds up to this day. So if you enjoy the point and click format, I highly recommend checking it out. It's a unique part of video game history and well worth your time. So that's our list. What do you think of it? And what games do you feel have been forgotten to the sands of time that you would add to it? Let us know in the comments down below. And don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.